What's up, dickheads? No sooner do I drop my last video on the things that I would like to see and everything of that nature, does the Wave 2 patch notes hit. And if you haven't seen them, man, just get ready. There's a lot of things that are getting changed. And I will start off with the fact that, let me ask you a question. You have a damage to elite build that has damage to elite talent on almost all of your pieces. Guess what? That build's trash. Do you have a destructive build for maybe a seeker build that has destructive on maybe every piece of gear that you've got? Guess what? Build's trash. Apparently, you will no longer be able to stack any talents. So if you have destructive on, say, your knee pads and your chest piece, well, you're only going to get one of those two. So it now doesn't stack, and you only need it on one piece instead of all pieces. So with that out of the way, you're pretty much going to be starting guessing the majority of your builds all over again. I hope you're excited. As you can hear, I'm very, very fucking excited. There's been a lot of changes. I don't know if anybody's seen any of the PTS footage that's getting put out there, but the Hive has got a pretty neat rework. The cooldown doesn't affect it anymore. It depends on how many charges you have. You can drop the Hive. It'll use its charges. You can run up to the Hive and pick the Hive back up, and it will start replenishing its charges immediately once it's been picked up. So it doesn't really have a cooldown. It works a lot like the Chem Launcher does now, to where if you have however many charges, you got 3 charges, you drop one, you still got 2, it's on cooldown, but it replenishes that 1 charge. So the Hive works a lot like that does now. But yeah, there's a lot of changes here. Hip fire now forces the character to walk, so you're not gonna be chicken dancing around people when you're hip firing. The getting stuck in cover has been removed. So now if you want to roll, you double tap whatever button you have mapped to that. And if you want to go into cover from a roll, you will just long press the button the second time and it will put you into cover. So, well, there's one good change that I've been calling for quite some time. There's been a lot of changes for the for PvP, since this is supposedly a PvP patch. There's been a lot of healing adjustments that affect all healing within Conflict and Dark Zones. Cooldown adjustments also have been changed within Conflict and the Dark Zones. Status effect duration have adjustments as well. There's a lot of buffs apparently. The Pulse Jammer. The way they have these in the patch notes, I'll try to link them in the description. But the way these things work is, apparently the Pulse Jammer, I'm guessing these are seconds. Maybe damage. I don't quite know how to read these because it says Pulse Jammer 0.16 to 5. I don't know if that's 16 seconds to 5 seconds on it says damage, but it's a jammer. The jammer doesn't do damage. Is that duration? I don't know. The Firefly Buster 16 to 35. Demolition Firefly from 16 to 10. Again, I don't know if that's damage, if that's cooldown, if that's... I had no idea. I think these guys could have did a little bit better when they were writing out these patch notes here. Seeker Mine Explosive from 16 to 22. Seeker Mine Airburst from 16 to 0.4. Seeker Mine Cluster from 16 to 25. No idea what that is. No idea. Same thing with the damage nerfs. Okay. Drone Striker, 0.12 to 0.1. Oh, Seeker Mine Mender from 0.64 to 0.5. That I'm guessing that's healing. Pulse Scanner from 1 to 5. Firefly Blinder from 1 to 2. Damage Taken nerfs. Healing adjustment nerfs. Cooldown adjustment nerfs, status effect, duration nerfs. Okay, exotic holster talents. The Chatterbox got a nerf. While holstered, reloading your weapon within 5 seconds after a kill grants 15% rate of fire for 10 seconds instead of 20. The Nemesis got a nerf. While holstered, gain plus 15% headshot damage while scoped with your current weapon instead of 25, and the PvP version apparently remains unchanged at 10%. The Merciless, while holstered, landing a shot has a 5% chance to deal 100% explosive damage instead of 20%. Exotic talent buffs, I'm guessing, added functionality, yeah. The Chatterbox, every body shot landed grants 1% rate of fire to a max of 60%. This resets on reload. Thank you, Jarvis. Kills with this weapon refill 75% of its magazine and grants a buff for 10 seconds, which is up from 20%. While the buff is active, every shot landed increases magazine capacity by 3, up from 1 to a max of 60. Killing a target consumes the buff to fully refill the increased magazine. Sweet Dreams got a few. I'm not gonna go through all these, man. If you guys want to read these things, the Pestilence got a buff. Merciless got a buff. Eagle Bear had some adjustments, so let's go through that. The base damage is still reduced by 15%. Accuracy increased as you continuously fire up to 100%. Headshot kills grants plus 100% reload speed, plus 50% damage, and the tenacity buff for 10 seconds. Up from 35% damage. It's now 50. PvP version remains at 35%. The strength of tenacity is increased by 1% for body shots and 5% for headshots. It's now 40 to 80% instead of 20 to 80 of the damage taken is delayed until the buff expires, and all the total delayed damage is reduced for each enemy killed while the buff is active, up to 100% with 3 kills instead of 5 kills. Diamondback got a buff. Diamondback got a new functionality. Headshots against players are guaranteed to critically hit. Provided a stack of Deep Fangs. Non-player enemies such as NPCs and player skills will still be marked randomly by the Diamondback and will also provide stacks when hit. Been balancing changes. The new talent Spark has already received a nerf to 15%. It's on the backpack. The Vigilance talent on the chest, which grants 25% weapon damage until you're hit and have received some form of damage, now requires 7 offensive attributes. There is a new talent on knee pads, which is called Composure. While in cover, grants plus 10% total weapon damage. It requires 11 offensive attributes. Now, since you are unable to stack any talents or anything of that nature, a bunch of talents got buffs to compensate for that. Critical went from 20% crit damage instead of 15. Surgical, 15% crit chance instead of 10. Devastating got a plus 10% weapon damage, up from 5. Empowered, 20% skill power, up from 10. Hard hitting, 25% DTE, up from 10. Vital, 25% health, up from 20. Hardened, plus 20% armor, up from 10. Insulated, plus 30% hazard protection, up from 10. Restorative, plus 30% health on kill, up from 10. Self-adjusting, plus 30% armor regeneration, up from 20. Destructive plus 40% up from 20, and capacitive plus 50% skill duration up from 20. On the ropes, got another nerf. Weapon damage is at 10% instead of 25 now. Creeping Death has a PvP. It's only 10 meters instead of 25 meters. It occurs every 5 seconds. Down from 15. Spotter got another nerf. It's 10% now. Kneecap only happens every 10 seconds. Once per 30, or I'm sorry. Kneecap once per 30 seconds. Shooting an enemy in the legs applies bleed for 5 seconds. Tech support. Kills by active skills grants plus 50% up from 25%. Skill damage for 15 seconds up from 10. Unbreakable is getting 20% instead of 25% of max armor. Repaired when it gets broke. Your med kits aren't used 7 seconds after. Bloodsucker is now granting 15% instead of 20%. And the stack is 2 instead of 5. Calculated skills from cover reduce skill cooldowns by 20% up from 10. Weapon talents, breadbasket got a buff. Close and personal got a buff. Rifleman got a buff. Spike got a buff. Perpetuation got a buff, and predetermined got a nerf. And they go through a bunch of the weapon balancing. ACR buffed 3%. AUG assault rifle buffed 3%. Carbine 7, 8%. F2000 5%. Fail 3%. G36 3%. M4 10%. P416 received a 5% nerf, and a TAR 21 got an 8% buff. So there's all your assault rifle buffs. Light machine guns, HK 121 got a 9% buff. KG got a 5% buff. M249 got a 4% nerf. M60 got a 10% nerf. RPK got a 5% buff. And the SA80 got a 6% buff. Marksman rifles, M700 tactical, 19% buff. M700 carbine, 19% buff. Classic M4 carbine, 14%. Hunting M4, 8% buff. Custom M44, 19% buff. SRS, 11% buff. The rifles, ACR, SS, 19% buff. M16, 68% buff. Classic M1A, 39 buff. SOCOM M1A 30% buff, M1A CQB 30%, lightweight M4 11%, Lavoa 12%, SIG 7% nerf, 1886 20% buff, MDR 16% buff, MK 17% buff. Submachine guns, they all got buffed. They got buffed crazy. AUG 15%, M5 13, M7 7%, MPX the house 38%, M90 25%, SMG 9 6%, T8 21 8%. That one got a decrease. I'll be damned. Thompson 12%, Tommy gun 6%, 14%, Tactical Vector 21%. Vector SBR 9, 17%. Vector .45 ACP 25%. So everybody get ready. So far as it looks, these Wave 2 patch notes, just get ready. Go farm. Start farming your shit now. If you're going to continue playing the game, go farm your shit now. If you like running a bunch of, stacking a bunch of your talents and everything like that, farm your shit now, because none of it's going to matter in a few weeks. So that's been my time. I hope you enjoyed the patch notes. Until the next time, fuck off.